My name is Ed Coburn. I'm a partner and chief content officer at the Mequoda group. We are a business process consulting organization working with helping publishers develop and implement multi-platform strategies. And with me today is Kim Mateus.
Hi, everybody. I'm a digital marketing strategist at Real Magnet. We have a booth out front. We do email and marketing automation, specializing in the publishing industry. But I worked at Mequoda for 8 years. I was employee number 2. And so Ed said, hey, why don't you help me out here today? And
so Kim was kind enough to step in and help on this. And this is actually a lot of the stuff you put this together, but
originally,
Mequoda, right?
With some updates.
Some of this material. So we're going to talk a little bit about search marketing. We're going to talk about some pay-per-click, and we're going to talk about SEO, and talk about identifying strong, things you want to do in identifying keyword opportunities for yourselves. I would also say, if you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to raise your hand. We're happy to have this be a discussion, and we're confident we'll get through this. So feel free to we'll make sure we won't get too sidetracked, but we're happy to take questions as we go.
Okay. So what we're going to walk you guys through is really what's foundational for SEO and PPC. So I think it's important. This idea of choosing the right keywords is going to be a valuable exercise whether you go SEO or PPC. So I thought we would actually start out with kind of PPC versus SEO, just a couple of factors to consider. And at first I was going, sort of the pros and cons of PPC and the pros and cons of SEO. But then I realized there really is no con. That's not a good way to frame it, because it's a benefit no matter what. Whether you're paying for the traffic or you're getting it organically, it's still traffic that you wouldn't have gotten if you weren't paying attention to this. So I kind of reframed it as benefits and considerations of each of these two channels. So when it comes to paid search, the most immediate benefit is that you can have instant visibility on the keywords of your choice, right? You can just buy your way in to getting that visibility on those pages. The other big obvious benefit is that you get data on what's working. So because Google wants you to spend money with their program, they're going to tell you what keywords are converting better for you. They're going to give you all that data. Whereas on the SEO side, they are now withholding that data. So you can't exactly tell what phrases people are landing on your site for. So those are kind of the two immediate obvious benefits. On the considerations side of things, you really do need a dedicated team, whether it be in-house, that they just really, really need to know what they're doing and they have to be dedicated to this, or you've got to hire an outside agency. So, you're going to not only be spending money on the ads, getting that placement, you've got to spend money on the team or the agency that's going to run this for you. It's definitely requires a commitment, but it's a beautiful thing. I mean, there's an equation there. You can measure ROI very easily when it comes to pay-per-click. You can see, okay, I spent $1 to get this, and it's going to be worth $5 to me. So I really like that part about it. But the other thing to keep in mind is it doesn't stop at the ads, right? So in order to optimize pay-per-click campaigns, you're going to be looking at landing page optimization, optimizing those call to action. So another kind of question you should ask yourself as an organization, are you ready to adapt and adopt this testing methodology? Are you going to be able to commit to testing is just a part of your life? PPC offers a tremendous opportunity for that. But to really get that ROI, it's a constant work in progress. But very, very, very worthwhile. On the organic side of things, from a benefits standpoint, so it's a long-term play. I used to like to say it's like the gift that keeps on giving. You can put the work in to optimize your content initially, and as long as you're keeping that content up to date and refreshed, that you can get traffic on terms for years. I remember optimizing for stuff at Mequoda, and it just kept cycling in. So that's the beautiful part about it. The other thing is that it's going to provide you with credibility and going to give you a chance to beat out your competition. So what's Google's main goal, right? What's their big mission? They want to supply the world with answers to people's questions. So if you as a publisher, one of our greatest competitive advantages as a publisher is all the content that we're sitting on, right? So if you can find a way to answer people's questions with your content, they're going to view you as a much more credible resource than if they just saw your ad somewhere and they know you're trying to sell them something. By going through the content route, answering their questions in a genuine way, you're going to sort of start seeing those benefits right off the bat. On the consideration side of things, it takes a ton of time. So if you're the kind of marketer that wants immediate results, SEO is not going to give that to you. It's an investment in time and commitment, and it also requires a dedication to this free content strategy, right? In order to rank well organically, you have to have a lot of content, which we all have, thankfully, but we have to be willing to give it away for free and have a strategy for how to convert, that free visitor to eventually to a paid visitor. So just some kind of big picture sort of overview on both of those. Now, when it comes to organic search, there are so many different factors that play into why Google will or will not rank your pages. So let's have a little bit of a look at that. There's so many factors that actually, one of my, oh, I forgot about this slide, sorry. We put this in here to kind of point out the fact that only 6 to 10% of users ever click on paid ads. So if you can get into the organic space and you can become committed to it, it's going to beat out PPC 90+% of the time. So that's another kind of argument for why this is a smart thing to do.
Right.
Another thing that I learned from Matt Bailey this morning is that from a source standpoint, customers that come in from organic search have an average lifetime value that is a lot greater than just the average. So organic is sort of the #1 source when it comes to lifetime value. He found this data point. Higher than PPC. I think organic was like 58%, PPC was like 36%. So that's another thing. When they're coming in organically, they're going to be more likely to stick with you for a longer time and spend more money with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, organic, yeah, it is. Yep, exactly. Search engine optimization relates to the organic side of it. Okay, so lots of different factors play into whether or not Google is going to rank your pages organically. And one of my favorite resources is called Search Engine Land. And they actually put out an entire periodic table of SEO success factors. Okay, because it's an algorithm, it's science here, right? And what you'll find on this, and I'm going to go through it in a little bit more detail, there's really these two big buckets. There's on-the-page SEO, which are all the factors that you as a publisher have direct control over. And then there's off-the-page SEO, which are pieces that are influenced from sources across the web. And what's cool about this periodic table, I do recommend you guys go to that URL, download it, check it out, because they're actually giving point values to each of those things. So some of those elements are worth 3 points, some are worth 2, 1, and then you've got the negatives. You've got the violations that end up, hurting you. And there's not one thing that, if you just do one thing, doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden have a ton of SEO success. It's more, a combination and a blend of these different elements that are going to ultimately work in your favor. So let's just drill down a little bit on the page things that Google looks at. The first thing is content. So it's looking for the content on your website, and it wants to know, is it quality? Is it well written? Is there a substantial amount of content there? On the research side, they want to know, is it obvious that you have researched the keywords that people are searching for? And are you putting those keywords on your pages, right? Then they're also looking at engagement. So when somebody searches something in Google and they hit your site, are they sticking around and actually absorbing what they found, or are they bouncing right back off, hitting that back button and going back to the search engine? Google sees a lot of that bounce back activity. That's going to not work in your favor. It wants to see that people are actually engaged once they get to the site. And then freshness. Google pays a lot of attention to content freshness. So even at Mequoda, we had what we used to call these blockbuster posts, phrases that we targeted, that we ranked on, beautiful. We have to keep that refreshed, because if we just let it sit from a 2008 publication date, it's going to end up getting buried. So just kind of keeping it refreshed, getting that new date going, Google really values that.
Just a sidetrack on that, we just discovered last week a little Google anomaly on the freshness. We will refresh the posts, but we are finding that Google, and Google will keep them ranked highly in the search results, but they're displaying the original post date as the date in the little blurb in the search results. So it sorts up first on the results list, but it's showing like a March 13th, 2009 date on it, which who's going to click on that? So we're figuring out some workarounds around that. But just to get at the issue of freshness, that's something that Google is constantly playing with. Yeah.
So when you say freshness, are you talking about going back to the old content, maybe those articles in 2009, and going back and updating them?
Absolutely. Yep.
So Google will.
So in case you can't hear the question, are we talking about going back to an old post and updating it and refreshing it? Yes, absolutely.
So is it important to put in there for freshness, I guess, to say, according to some research done March 2014, is that helpful to put that in the article? Do you have any sense that the algorithms are looking for?
It's not clear to me that they're reading that, but one thing we discovered as we were looking into this last week, this little anomaly we discovered, Google is absolutely scanning the page looking for dates, because they were manufacturing some originally published dates that didn't exist. Now we think, by the way, when we update it, we've changed it to this post was originally published in 2011. Google doesn't seem to be able to take that and put, then they ignore it, and then they're taking the most recent update date and putting that in the search results. So we're digging way down in the weeds here, and I'll be happy to talk to you more. So there are things you can do, but Google absolutely is scanning the page looking for dates and isn't always certain what it's finding, but that doesn't seem to be stopping them. So this may also be a work in progress. They may be, tinkering with their algorithms, but yeah, it wouldn't hurt. Okay.
So the next on the page bucket that they look at is HTML. So they want to go into your title tags and say, are there keywords that are relevant in the title tags to the content on the page? They're looking at the meta description to say, does the meta description describe accurately what's on the page? The header tags, so your H1, H2 tags, are there keywords that you're putting in your header tags? And then the data structure, is it structured in a way that the robots can easily find? The last bucket here has to do with that as well. So the architecture of the site plays a big role in its findability. Can the search engines effectively crawl the content? How are you handling duplication issues? Load time is big for SEO. So again, Matt, I don't know if you guys sat in on that session, but he shared a tool for testing your load time. Site's got to be fast. And then it's also going to look at the URLs, and it's going to say, are they short? Are there keywords in that URL? So you want to see what kind of data you're carrying in the URLs. In an ideal world, they're nice and clean. They've got categories in there, and they've got the keywords that you're optimizing for. So these are all the elements that you as the publisher have control over on the page SEO Success Factor that you can control.
And the descriptive URLs, I would add also the descriptive URLs and file structure, I sort of put those together because they, as you were saying, the slash whatever, the file structure should be revealed in the URL.
Yep. And as we get into this a little bit further, you'll see how that plays out when you are selecting, your primary keyword topics. It should sort of flush out like that on the URL, so it's nice and clear where the person is on the site. All right, some of the off-page SEO success factors are links. Okay, so the first thing Google's going to look at are the links that are pointing to your site from trusted, quality, respected websites. So it kind of wants to know who your friends are, right? Do links pointing to your website use the keyword phrases that you're trying to optimize for? And then it's a quantity play. How many inbound links do you have from other publishing sites? The more, the better. Again, as long as it's credible and you're not paying for it and spamming it.
Again, with quality sites, going out and getting a bunch of unranked or page rank 1 sites to link to you doesn't necessarily help you, and we think probably
it might hurt you, yeah.
Whereas you get a bunch of page rank 7s or 8s or even 5s or 6s to be linking to, then that could be helping you.
I remember the golf publication that we used to work on, this little tiny Golf Vacation Insider website managed to get Golf Digest magazine to link to one of his landing pages offering a free download. And just by that one simple connection he made, all of a sudden he was now ranked on page 1 for the phrase that he was optimizing for. And I used this in a case study the other day, and he still holds that rank,
Wow.
5 years later.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful. That stuff is super powerful. On the social side of things, so it used to be, back in the day, it was easy. You just had to pick your keywords, optimize for it, and you maybe were going to be okay. Now Google is valuing the social influence. So the first thing it's looking at are not just, are people on social media sharing your content? Are they respected people? So it's not just, do you have friends? Are you friends with the cool kids? Are people sharing your content on social? So the social is very much influencing organic search nowadays. On the trust side of things, it's paying attention to, again, are these shares and links coming from authoritative websites? And it also looks at site history. So how long have you had your domain registered? It values age. So those are some off-the-page SEO success factors. Is there one more? And lastly, of course, personalization. So the search results are going to vary based on what country you're in, what city and state you're in, whether or not you're signed in, and whether or not even your friends on Facebook, if they've visited this page, that's going to influence the ranks as well. So it's definitely stepping into kind of a whole new world. But the good news is that as a publisher, we've got a lot of quality content. We just do our best to publish it, share it, get it out there. We're going to be strongly favored. So I think that wraps up kind of the intro piece, and let's now step into the step-by-step.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about doing some keyword research, and this is applicable whether you're looking at search engine optimization or whether you're looking at pay-per-click. This pretty much applies equally to both. So to Kim's point, the slide she showed with 90+% of the traffic is clicking on the organic results. Frankly, at Mequoda, we have a bias towards SEO for that reason. That's where, if you're going to chase 90% of the clicks or 6 to 10% of the clicks, I'm going to go to the 90+. You can do pay-per-click. That's extra. It can be a great way to accelerate things. You just have to bring your wallet. And the other thing is that as soon as you stop doing that, it's gone. And to Kim's point, SEO is the gift that keeps on giving. So you might hear a slight bias in the favor of search engine optimization, but that's but again, this really applies equally. So in doing keyword research, there's really sort of this constant cycle that you're going through of researching, you're organizing, you're benchmarking. This is really SEO here, where you get into the creating and posting content, but you're promoting, and now we're back into applying equally to pay-per-click or search or SEO, and then you're analyzing results, and you just keep iterating that. And I think back in the old to the direct mail days, where you might do 2 or 4 big direct mail campaigns a day, and you basically went through this entire cycle, but you do it every 3 or 4 or 6 months. And now, in pay-per-click campaigns, this stuff is, minutes, hours, days. And the good news is Google will help you automate parts of this, and so. But you were constantly cycling through this. So we pulled, as I mentioned earlier, we pulled this session together a little bit quickly, and we were borrowing some teaching materials that we use at the Mequoda group. So just to set this up, we are using a composite company. It doesn't actually exist. It's called Green Gardens Network. And so this is just a little bit about what they do. But so we wanted to use one example. Mequoda, we use this to teach because pretty much everybody can understand gardening. They may garden. At the very least, it's not arcane technical industry buzzwords that nobody can figure out. So that's why we use it. There's nothing magical about this. And again, it doesn't actually exist. But so it's, you know, it's a existing multi-platform publisher that does a lot of different, lots of the kinds of products that you all do. Yep, I hit the wrong button there. There we go. So the first thing to do is we're going to explore the online environment, and we're going to just take a look around, see, you know, if we put in a word such as gardening, very generic word, we're not going to be chasing gardening and trying to appear on page 1 for gardening, at least not early on. I spent 12 years as a publisher at Harvard Medical School. We were not chasing words like health. Very, very crowded search result environment, but you start there. So we're starting with gardening. We're looking at, you know, what comes up, what are the keywords, and, you know, wonderful thing about the internet, you can see exactly who comes up for whatever keyword phrase you're targeting. You can go and look at their site, see what the page is linking to. You can look at their site architecture. You can see what are the naming conventions they're using, what are the keyword phrases they're optimizing for. You know, it's all readily available. So you know, that's where we'd start. And then you start brainstorming ideas. So if we're in gardening, what are the things we might talk about that people will be interested in? And this company was, I mean, this composite company was really talking about flowers. So we were brainstorming all different kinds of flowers, how, you know, and not just cone flowers and asters and lilacs, but how to grow azalea plants, how to, you know, caring for roses in dry weather, you know, all of these kinds of things. We're just going to brainstorm, and we're going to record those phrases.
And this is an exercise that's worthwhile just doing with your editors, right? This is where you gather up your editorial team and get their input, of course, on what these phrases are. They know the content better than anybody, and so a lot of times they're the ones feeding this. And it's really important, if you can, to get the editors to buy into this whole thing, because if you're still operating in a world where you don't pay much attention to SEO, and, you know, the print guys know how to write for print, you know, this is a nice thing to make them feel a part of right from the beginning, so that when you then go hand them the list of the keyword phrases they have to optimize their content for, they remember being part of the process, and it's just a good way to get that buy-in.
Thanks, Kim. That's a really good point, because again, if all you're doing is pay-per-click, the marketers can do pay-per-click. You only need the marketers around the table for that. If you're doing an SEO play, you need people you need subject matter expertise around that table too. And again, I mean, so you do SEO, you can always add pay-per-click, but if you only do pay-per-click and you've only got the marketing people around, you're never going to be able to make a credible play for the SEO for that 90+% of the search traffic. So, so then we would go, and out of that brainstorming, we'd start to organize this, and we'll develop a taxonomy. And here, you know, we've created sort of categories. So we looked at perennials versus annuals versus bulbs, shrubs, and then listing sort of keyword phrases within that. And so in this example, when we use it, we initially had 159 different categories. Out of this, we selected 48, the 48 asters, chrysanthemums, all the way over to pests and diseases and garden photography that we're going to be targeting in this case study. Again, it's a limited case study. There's no magic number there. But in general, in SEO, trying to chase too many is probably more problematic than chasing too few. A dozen, 24, 48, things in that kind of range tend to be a good place to start.
And also note that those primary keyword phrases, kind of the ones at the top there, they end up being the architecture on your website. So picture if you have a blog and you've got the topic categories on the right-hand side or whatever, those are that. So it's also how you're labeling the architecture of your site to make these pages easy to find, both for the search engines and for the users.
Which is, again, why you want to have the editorial people in the room as you're doing this, because it has broader implications. Then we create, as Kim was just referring to, these uber categories that become significant when you're organizing your content. And then a little bit of language, so they're the Uber categories, and then there are those primary categories. So we've got 48 primary categories that we're targeting in this.
And this is a lot. This is a heavy load.
Yeah.
This would be a B2C publisher, you know, with a lot of editorial resources, a lot of different products to sell. So that's the other thing you want to factor in. What size keyword universe are you going to be able to manage to? I think staff side plays into it. What you sell, you know, what the conversion path ultimately is going to be. So just keep in mind this is a lot.
Yes.
Based on the fact that they're consumer and.
And at the other extreme, Mequoda is a small B2B business consulting firm, and we have 4 primaries that we target. So
and when I was there, we had like 20, and
it
was so hard to manage. It really was.
So it's, you know, somewhere, and I don't know of anybody targeting fewer than 4, but so that's the sort of range that we'd recommend. So then we start with the Google Keyword Planner, and you've got to sign into your Google account now. That's a
Just wondering what your criteria for selecting categories was from 159 to 48.
That's a good question. So let me go back to that. Well, we can see it here. From 159 to 48, how do we do that? The criteria, there's sort of 3 criteria we tend to suggest. One is looking at the search activity. So not all, you know, roses are the big winner here on search, hands down, you know, far greater than anything else, and then they go down from there. So we are looking at search volume on the different keywords. We're looking at sponsor relationships that we have, because they're taking advertising, so we want to know what kind of relationships do they have with advertisers. If they have a great advertising relationship with someone that, a salvia producer, well, that's going to cause that to sort up higher. If they don't have any advertising opportunity, then that's going to go down. And then the third area is what kind of content production capability do they have in that area? Do they have a big archive of content on hostas? If they don't, I mean, I got to say, of the 3, the search universe generally features up highly in selecting these, although there are examples. Think about America's Test Kitchen is one that comes to mind. They drive an enormous amount of traffic from their TV show. They're not dependent on SEO there, so they might optimize on different words to go along with pay-per-click campaigns. So the search volume might not be as big a factor for them. So those are the 3 factors, and you're assessing them and weighting them depending on your individual corporate goals and resources. Sure. Let me catch back up to where we were. So at the Google Keyword Planner, you sign in, which you have to do, and we're going to start looking for keywords. You go to search for a new keyword and ad group. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. You can download this presentation, so we wanted to make sure we included all of the steps for you, so that when you're trying to recreate this later, you can do that. But there's not that much to say about some of these. So then we're going to be looking at keyword popularity, and here we've typed in azaleas, plural up there. So we entered the keyword. We're choosing a location if geotargeting is important. And Google's geotargeting has gotten better and better, or more and more refined, I should say. So we do that. Then we get into choosing language if you want. If you want global English is probably the most common, but you could just be, could be other languages or just US English or whatever. And then you indicate whether you want a closely related or broad match. Depending on what you're looking at there, and the thing I'd say is, do that both ways to get a sense. They each give you different information. And then you can exclude certain words or phrases. So if there were, sometimes there are phrases or acronyms that are very important in your industry, but they are used in other industries as well. And so you may want to exclude those because they produce too much false positives for you. So you can go in you can do that. You can eliminate specific brands or that sort of thing as well. So that's something you can do there. Just a little bit of a drill down on the geotargeting. I mentioned that they're continually refining that. You can target by city, county, state, country, and Nielsen region as well. So you can get pretty specific. We work with a regional publisher in Southeast Michigan, and their universe, they've got a dozen different communities that they publish in, and we can target just those areas to see what the search activity is. So here's the, as we look at the broad versus broadly related versus closely related, it will just produce different results. So the closely related, what we were searching, as you may recall, the word azaleas. So we're only getting phrases that have the plural word azaleas in them under the closely related match. Under the broad match, we will get azalea plant or azalea bush or azalea flower or whatever. So that's not the exact word that we searched on, but it's broadly related to that, and I would even say closely related, but that's not the phraseology that the terminology that Google uses.
There's a couple of animations.
Yeah.
Just to point out that
that's right.
The broad is going to return the.
I forgot that I had actually illustrated this.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we pull together the results, and so you can see the search volume, the average monthly searches. You'll see the competition. Now the competition and the suggested bid price is for pay-per-click. That's relevant, obviously, if you're pursuing pay-per-click. It's totally irrelevant if you're doing organic. The competition that you care about if you're pursuing primarily organic is what are the number of search search results that come up when you search on that phrase. So that's a different competitive assessment from what you're seeing here, just to be clear, because that's a question that often comes up. So you can see the keywords and the average monthly searches. I already discussed that. So then to see the competition here, you can see you do a search in quotes on azalea care, and you can see there's 8,150 results for azalea care. If you don't put that in quotes, you could go from 8,000 to 8 million results. So make sure you put that in quotation marks. Yeah. Yes, excellent point. Thank you, Helen. You want to make sure you're signed out of this and signed out of your Google account when you're doing these searches, because Google is watching you and they're learning what you like and they're going to bias the results. Thank you. Really, really important point. You might even maintain, have a clean laptop that you do this kind of searching on, so that you're not biasing your results. You want to be clearing your cookies and clearing your history frequently, because we just don't know all of what Google might be using, but if you're logged in, we absolutely know they are looking at your previous search history. So yeah, really, really important point. Thank you, Helen. So yeah, mention this just to underscore it. Again, look, here's the results. So yeah, literally, when we did azalea care, within quotes, 8,150, without quotes, 8,420,000. So that's going to totally skew your data.
And how this plays out is, when you're trying to optimize for azalea care, you know that your competitors are you're competing with pages that use that phrase in this exact order. By removing the quotes, that's returning, the reason it's 8,000 versus 8 million is it's returning pages that use azalea over here, care over here. It's not together. They can be in completely different paragraphs. So that's why you want to.
Right. So the care may have nothing to do with azalea care. It could be talking about bringing azaleas when you go to visit your sick relative who's under health care in the hospital or hospice care, but Google's going to see they're close on the same page, and so, yeah, very important. So, organizing your keyword research. Am I handing this over to you?
Yeah, we can try. Give it an old college try here. All right, so the two pieces of data, if you guys remember, okay, the two pieces of data that we care about that Google told us is that first column, the keywords, and then they give you monthly volume. So the first thing we want to do is annualize that. So we add a new column for annual searches. We just multiply that by 12. And the next thing that we're adding in is the competition. So remember that whole exercise of going to manually Google all these phrases to see what the competition is. That's the next column of data that we need to go manually get. And what you're looking for is the relationship between those two things. So what you want is anything, the higher numbers, right? So if you look at the one with the 3.29, the second one, pruning azaleas, that's a perfect keyword phrase to target, because what it's telling you is that there's a lot of volume happening on it. There's 22,000 people searching for it every year. There's only 6,000 competing pages. So those are the relationships you want to find. Stuff where there's a lot of search volume, but not a lot of competition. Okay? And this is the scale that we develop. So anything over a 1 is money. 0.5 to 0.99 is not bad. Below 0.5, you're just going to, struggle a little bit more to rank on that.
And the one thing I'd add to that is that it's going to, to a certain extent, that grading scale depends on what industry you're in and how competitive
Totally.
it is.
Yeah.
That's sort of the ideal world. In practical reality, we're finding in some markets, you may not be able to find anything over a 1.
Right.
You may, if you get a 0.6, that might be great. But when you see things like pruning azaleas, 3.29, that's a fight we can win. So we're going to go after that.
And so that's exactly, we're not looking for a fair fight, we're looking for a fight that we can win. So kind of the next step, once you've done all this, so you've identified your keywords, you've figured out how popular they are, how often they're getting searched on, you're figuring out how competitive these phrases are. Now it's time to benchmark this and put this all into a report. So this is the Google Visibility Report that Mequoda makes available to clients. You should have one. And frankly, since I've been away from Mequoda for the last 2 years, I miss having access to this. I got recruited to do marketing at Leadership IQ, and we tried our best with Helen's help to get to this. And it's just I missed having kind of this available to me. It really is a nice tool, because it's going to basically tell you how you're doing with all of these keyword phrases that you're ranking. How is it going for you? So we do use a third-party tool to find those positions, all right? So now we have all the first part of the data figured out. Now we have to go see, hey, are we ranking on any of these phrases? And if so, where are we? So the tool is called Advanced Web Ranking. There's a range in cost depending on the kind of license that you need. You basically just upload your keyword phrases into this tool. You tell it what search engine you want it to go index. Of course, we select Google. You put your URL in, and then it's going to tell you where you rank on all of the keyword phrases that you're monitoring. And kind of a bonus thing is that you can actually track how your competitors are doing. So you can run your entire keyword set against your competitor, which is a nice sort of little side bonus. And so there's that column that we are bringing that in on. Oops, sorry. Actually, let me back up a little bit. So you'll notice what it's giving you. This is kind of the raw data file that we get from Advanced Web Ranking, and you can see where we have a position, it's going to tell you exactly which page is ranking for that keyword phrase.
So just for instance, the third one down you see is in position 11, hydrangea plant. Position 11 means you're the top result on page 2, which is better than invisible, but not by much. So you want to be 10 and under in the SEO race.
And that's exact. So those are those percentages. So we assume if you are on page 1, so if you have a Google position of between 1 and 10, we're going to assume 100% visibility. Now, we all know that even that's not really exact, because if you're number 10, the people that are actually going to see you down there is a lot less than the people that are going to see you if you're number 1 or 2. But we need to attach some sort of metrics to this to make it measurable. So 100% if you're on page 1. If you're on page 2, that visibility drops to 5%. And I've actually read that it's even less. It's like only 2% of people ever even click to page 2. But you want to get some credit, because if you see yourself floating at, position 11, 12, you can try to do some things to amp it up and get it over onto page 1. So it's still, it's useful to monitor. And we go all the way to 50, so all the way to page 5. And so here's how that percentage, so 100% on page 1, 5, and then 1 on page 3. And then you'll notice that the impressions are now equal to the searches. So again, if we assume, if we are on page 1, and we know that there's 1,300 people a year searching for this, and we're on page 1, we're assuming we're getting 1,300 impressions on that. And again, it's not exact, but it's good enough for the measurement piece of this.
Yep.
And then basically it all sort of bubbles up to that cluster. So we kind of drill down in azaleas to kind of walk you guys through the process. That was just one cluster. We would be doing that for all of the clusters. And then you get to see at a high level how you're ranking into the different categories that you're targeting.
So just to talk for a moment about clusters. So the first line, the highlighted line there, azaleas. You see the fourth column over, you see the number 441. There are 400 in this case, and we actually did this as if it was live. We went out and searched on azalea and found 441 phrases that Google told us were related to azaleas, and that we are trying to optimize for. So just on azaleas, we've got 441 keyword phrases that we're chasing there, with a total combined annual search volume of 2.7 million annually. So that's what those numbers, that's what the cluster refers to. So we call those the azalea cluster, but there are 441 separate individual phrases.
Yep. In terms of how often you have to do something like this. We say, annual, update your search volume and your Google listings annual. Kind of give it an annual refresh, right? Get an update monthly on your Google position. Run that advanced web ranking at least once a month to see how you're moving up or down. And then on a daily basis, your editors should be using this sort of research at their fingertips every day. I mean, SEO is a mindset. It's a commitment. And every time you're writing something for the web, ideally, you're doing it for search, and you're thinking about that with every piece of content that you write.
And I would go even further to say, anytime you're writing anything, you got to assume it's going to be on the web at some point. So keep it in mind for virtually everything. I find I'm SEOing notes to my mother. It's just it's a habit.
No, it's true. There's organizations that are really successful at this transform the mindset from day one. Even if the article is going to show up in a magazine or a newsletter first, it's already optimized. That's right.
And that's not to say there can't be versions, but still, the more that pervades your mindset, the more effective your copy's.
And that's the other thing is this is such an audience tool for you. Like when before search were you able to know what phrases are more popular than others? Your editors, it was just up to them. They would get really clever with things, and this is telling you, let's leave the clever, at the door a little bit, and let's just feed back to the people the terms that they're Googling,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I think that's it.
That is.